don't. I don't know. Let's go.
Okay, sign me up for that dance class. That looks so fun.
If David Harbour gets an Emmy nomination, that's the clip you play right there.
That's
that is
it.
an award-winning dance sequence.
That's all right. We love Floyd, too.
Yes.
We just love his joy and his passion. Welcome, everybody, to DTF St. Louis, the unofficial after show. We have watched episode 2 of DTF St. Louis called Snag It, and we're going to break down all of the episodes. But first, just to introduce ourselves again, I am Lauren Trager, the chief investigative reporter for First Alert 4, and that's a TV station here in St. Louis, Missouri.
Elliott Collins. I am a professional TV and film critic, and here to talk about this episode with you, which I'm excited to be here.
All right, real quick diversion here. Normally, I'm investigative reporter, investigating stories, doing news stories. Mm-hmm. If I had to have like a profile name, though, I was thinking about that because that's obviously a big part of the show.
Yeah.
Do you know what yours would be?
I'm going E's the man, E-man.
All right, yeah.
Something like that.
Get your name in there.
Just kind of put the name in there and let you know I'm the man at the same thing, something like that.
Yeah,
it
doesn't have to be a dating profile, obviously.
There
We're
you
not
go.
asking any personal questions on this show unless you want to share something with us, Elliott. I don't want a dating profile either, but I was thinking something boring like busy, tired mom, or I like go-getter from this show.
Yeah.
I don't have Jamba Juice very often, but it sounds like
freeze.
it sounds like a good one. Okay, so we're going to get into the episode here. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it all. We're going to be breaking it down because there is so much to talk about, I think, in this episode. Some of the criticism I heard about the first one was that it was kind of slow and maybe started off a little bit slow. I feel like this one picked up steam literally and figuratively. What do you think?
I think this is one of those great episodes that kind of fill in the blanks. We kind of go back in time and kind of see where the idea of the app came from. We get to explore more of the relationships between Carol and her affairs that was going on with Clark. So yeah, I enjoyed the first episode, but I think with television does, it should get better as it goes along. So I thought this was a great companion piece to the first episode and really kind of dives deep into the characters.
I mean, we started, of course, with Floyd dancing, and we're going to see more of him dancing in just a minute and signing. But I mean, are we starting to kind of fall in love with this character? There's 100%. Just something sort of endearing about him.
1,000%. I hope this, as we go along, I hope they don't do anything crazy and make us hate Floyd. Because right now, I feel for him. I want to hang out with him and learn some of those dance moves with him. But yeah, he's definitely the most, I guess, sympathetic is the word that comes to mind. Like, you really feel for him, you root for him. Obviously, we know what happens to him. But yeah, Floyd right now is probably my favorite character.
Yeah, and of course we know that he has some unhappiness in his life. He's still seeking a lot of things. The car breaks down. I mean, you can kind of just see that he's like, oh, man. Yeah, like he just can't get it together, and maybe that's why he's trying to explore whatever it might be, friendship even with Clark.
100%. I mean, literally, the car breaks down. The dance moves are breaking down their own way, figuratively speaking. But yeah, it's just a character that he's down in luck. And I think we talked about this with episode 1, that any form of connection, whether it's with Clark, trying to find a connection with his stepson, trying to find a relationship again with his wife, but this app comes along and people seem to be more accepting. As we'll talk about, he meets modern love, so what that relationship looks like. But yeah, Floyd is just looking for some type of connection out there.
I have to ask you about this story about his disability, this disease that he says he has. We don't need to go into details about what the disease is, but we kind of get this backstory about how he got it, but then we don't get the answer. Like, it was just this funny to me moment of like, wait, what?
I know people in my personal life that has an interesting story like that, and they just forget the punchline. Like, it's like, what happened? So I don't know if that's something to look forward to as the weeks go on, or if it is just like a mystery. But something tells me that there's more to that story that caused this condition. But yeah, that I felt for Clark in that moment. Like, continue.
Can you? I just wait. What?
Yeah.
The thing.
Yeah. Part 2. Yeah.
Yes. So let's switch over to Carol now, because I feel like we really got a sense of, I guess, just how multifaceted or multidimensional she might be. It's hard to know which way she's going to go.
Carol is an interesting individual. We find out the situation between her and Clark and how she kind of planned everything from the beginning in a certain extent. But then she has this side of her that loves Floyd and wants to grow old with Floyd, but yet you're engaging in these affairs with Clark. So who is Carol is the question I have. Is she capable of doing what happened to her husband? She says she's soft-spoken, she's quiet, but when we see her with Floyd, she seems the complete opposite of that. Or with Clark, she seems the complete opposite of that. So she is a character that in a television show, you always have that one character where you're just like, what's the deal with this person? And right now, that's Carol for me.
Yeah, you touched on that moment where she clearly still loves him. him. And this is at the 314 Fest, which for those who don't know, 314 is our area code in St. Louis. So that's kind of the reference there. But let's take a look at that clip for just a second.
Look at him go.
Are you okay?
Clark, I love him so much. I want to be old with him.
So this scene kind of surprised me a little bit because I was sort of thinking, oh, she's just kind of over her marriage and just done with Floyd. And then you're like, oh, she's very emotional here.
And even before that, the moment when her and Clark are holding hands after his wife walks out, like, you guys are just out here, not caring who sees or what's going on. But no, the moment when Carol looks at her husband and just kind of has that kind of moment where she's like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I love this man. Look at the passion that he's showing on display right now. And it's just like, again, this which lane, which side of the aisle is she on? Is she more interested in this affair? Does she want to fall back in love with her husband? It's a very interesting dynamic that she's exploring right now. It's a very complex character.
And then one of the things I noticed, though, is there's not a lot of remorse in this episode. She's not tearful about his death at any point in time. When Plum is questioning her, she kind of gets frustrated at the end, but she doesn't really seem to just be like, oh my gosh, this man I love is dead. Yeah. And I'm wondering where that emotion's going to come in.
There seems to be a lack of emotion, lack of empathy from her, because even the moment where we have the very comedic moment when she has to take the bus, and she's just, you would think someone would be kind of upset in the moment, but she just seems just kind of like, it is what it is. So she has a very interesting personality in which she doesn't really show her emotions, and I don't know if that's been bottled up inside of her, but yeah, she's someone that seems to be, you can't get a good read on her, which is interesting.
One of the things I noticed is in the first episode, she's listening to that motivational podcast or audiobook about how you should tell people to like speak up in order to kind of, access power over them or something. And then she does it to the detective and you're like, wow, okay. Yeah. So there's some calculated there. A lot more to be seen, I think, from her.
100%.
So, and then of course there's Clark. Yeah. He's this local TV weatherman. Part of it, I wonder, does it read authentic even that he'd even be on this app, that he wouldn't be thinking through some of these things to begin with? He's so kind of interested in his own maybe public image. He's literally on billboards throughout the whole town. Does that then give him like this need for a safe space with Carol where he can kind of talk about what his inner desires are? Yeah,
that's what it seems to be. Like he can be himself in a certain extent. Like it almost feels like Clark is putting on a facade or putting on a mask of the, again, the weatherman, and he's the family guy. But when he's around her, he kind of seems like he's, a completely different person to a certain extent. Him going to the baseball game, the concert scene that we have. So it seems to be that Carol has brought out this side of Clark that's maybe always been there but hasn't been able to show that side of him, especially with his persona. So it seems like she's bringing that out of him, but at the same time now he's kind of reverting back to that after she kind of reveals that she doesn't want to explore anything else in this relationship.
Like, as an investigative reporter, I've covered a lot of murders and crime and things like that. Yeah. I keep asking myself, why hasn't he called his attorney yet? He's like that's just odd. Openly talking to this detective. He has this desire, it seems like, to say the truth and almost vindicate himself, but also be honest and forthcoming in a way. I don't know. I'm just like, call your lawyer, man.
I don't know if it's a matter like one of those shell shock moments where you're just like, is this a dream? When am I going to wake up from this nightmare? Or if there are secrets that he just is too embarrassed or nervous or scared to say. But there is, you would think, I totally agree with you, in that position, you would want to get your lawyers involved and speak more freely to I'm innocent. He's yet to tell Detective Homer that he didn't do anything. He's just been kind of skating around all these things that are coming up. So yeah, there's something there that Clark just seems to be either, like I said, just shell-shocked with the whole situation, or he's hiding a secret from someone.
And then we have these couple revelations that he's Tiger, and that Floyd may be meeting up with men, which is sort of a twist in the tale that I don't know that we saw coming necessarily.
Again, that, and by the way, a phenomenal actor, Skarsgård there, and he's not a part of the Skarsgård family, but he's a great actor nonetheless. But yeah, I'm really excited to explore what that relationship was like, because it seems to be, they were romantically involved potentially, and I would love to know, like, has that always been in Floyd? Is this something new as far as exploring that side of himself? So that was an interesting little moment there to hopefully we can expand upon.
Yeah, a fun fact about Peter Skarsgård, he was actually born in this area.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, he was born at Scott Air Force Base. Military family moved around a lot, but he has connections, and he went to Washington University here in St. Louis. So, there's a lot of little St. Louis moments in this show.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued in where that's going to go to.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll become sort of a moral backbone of the show or I don't know. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I think he's going to probably give us an insight on the DTF app and kind of that side of the, where suburbians, the secrets of the suburbs per se. So I'm excited to learn more about him.
And then there's characters that I just feel like we're not getting a lot of still. Yeah. Not a lot about the stepson. Some things, but not a lot.
Yeah, he doesn't like to dance. He doesn't have any dance moves.
No, he does not. Not like his stepdad.
Yeah. He's the character right now. Not in the same boat as his mom, but there seems to be something, I don't want to say inherent about it, but they're both closed off. They don't seem to really connect as openly as Floyd does. So there seems to be, I'm very intrigued to know if we're going to learn, what happened to his father, what happened to her past relationship, how does she find Floyd? So that Floyd and that plot, that's the plot right now that I'm just so curious about.
And also Clark's wife. I just feel like where is she in this whole thing? I mean, we see her very briefly, but we don't know anything about her or what she may or may not know. She's trying to call Clark. Clark's calling her in jail. She didn't pick up though.
She didn't.
No,
it was
she did
almost
not.
kind of like a payback moment because he ignored her call earlier in the episode, and she did the same thing, rightfully so. I mean, you just found your husband is having an affair and accused of murder. So I don't know if I'm picking up that call anytime soon myself.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Although he does say, I'm sorry.
He does say that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I know a lot of people from our area are watching for are the St. Louis moments. I know Stephen Conrad talked a lot about that in our last episode. He did not, it was not shot here. He tried to work in some details, he said, to make it sort of authentic. Yeah. I did find that there were some moments in this episode where I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Namely being Busch Stadium.
Right.
When they had an actual scene at a Cardinals game, it was clearly not at a Cardinals game. What did you make of that?
Again, especially after talking to him, it's just like I can see the effort that was put there to try to make it, make it like we're in the stadium. But of course, as we know, they weren't. But it was just still fun. Again, when you have those moments, let's go to a Cardinals game. And I love how she had the app pulled up right on the phone.
She was ready to go.
Going on, but yeah, it was a nice again knowing how the food is made, knowing that they weren't shot in St. Louis. It is interesting to see that.
Yeah. And the 314 Fest reference I thought was kind of cool. We obviously have some music festivals here that sometimes are happening, sometimes are not happening in St. Louis. We have kind of a sordid history with music festivals, but it's just so cool that was a reference, and I got it. And there's been a couple shots of the arch.
Right.
Again, I think most St. Louisans are going to say it's pretty apparent. It's not filmed here, and that they're not totally familiar with all of our little nuances. Yeah. Well, for better or for worse.
Yeah, we got a good show. We'll give them a little leeway.
And then one of the other things to point out, as far as I'm aware, there is no dating app specific to St. Louis. There is no DTF St. Louis, but there is like a pretty thriving scene for people to meet up and things like that. We've certainly done some news stories about it. One pretty recently, we had done a news story about people meeting up for sex parties. Basically, the concern was that people were doing it in residential neighborhoods, at homes, very frequently. So we actually kind of wanted to bring up a clip of that news story just to kind of talk about, it sets up our next guest. So let's take a look.
Oh my God, I knew it. Okay. Yeah, so, and we have children over here on this block, so it shouldn't be going on.
What made you suspect?
One couple, they were basically naked walking down the street.
How do we know, though? Well, because they advertise online, post after post for sex parties at least 5 separate and regular locations in St. Louis, often clearly labeled sex or BDSM party, a term for a particular sex fetish, with some hosts posting pictures of what they offer inside. We found several parties scheduled every single week, dozens and sometimes hundreds of people RSVPing to attend. Every single ad indicates there is a charge to enter. One posting says they provide, quote, water, alcohol, light refreshments, condoms, and lube. Others say, quote, there will be vendors selling wares to inflict pain and or pleasure. This home in South St. Louis even placing a well-lit sign right in its front window, reading, Kink Community welcomes you. #FTheSnow.
From my 21 years as a lawyer, this is the most bold I've seen it.
All right, so that was just one example, I think, of how people might be like looking to meet up in St. Louis and maybe have encounters or seek out intimacy in different ways. Obviously, we were kind of looking at like what's legal and what's not legal and what's maybe safe or not safe. Yeah. But I think this show kind of touches on that, is that there is desire for kind of trying to think through some things that you might want in adult life. Yeah, I mean, fascinating story, by the way. 5 times a week. That's, I don't know what kind of hobby club even meets that frequently in the first place. But anyway. Don't park in my parking spot. That's the number one thing in St. Louis, right? It's all about the parking.
Yeah, but no, fascinating story there. And to tie it into the show, I think it's, we now live in this time now where technology, these apps are just like almost, these parasocial relationships where people are seeking things, relationships on these apps that can be dangerous or, sometimes find happiness or friendship. So it is a very nice kind of tie in there. So, yeah.
Well, and this is the podcast where the F stands for facts, of course. So we wanted to kind of ask an expert about some of these questions of the why and maybe why in middle age, maybe people are thinking about taking a left or right turn in their lives. Mm-hmm. So a little while ago, we actually sat down with a relationship and sex therapist, and we're going to have her full conversation that we talk with her about that coming up just after this quick short break. And so joining me now is relationship expert, I will call you, Angela Skirtu, a licensed marriage therapist, certified sex therapist as well. You have written several books on this topic, have clients who work in this space. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Tell us a little bit about your practice and some of the clients that you see.
Yeah, so I have the Open Bedroom Door show, which airs every Thursday at 9 p.m. on E360 TV. I talk about sex. Like, my whole job is sex, everything sex, and relationships. So anything a couple fights about, that's my job, right? So whether they talk about finances, kids, and what's funny is a lot of times people are coming in for sex-related issues, but we end up talking about their whole quality of life because guess what?
It connects. So when you heard that this show was happening, and not only that has St. Louis in the title, and we'll be discussing, we know, issues involving everything that you work on, what was sort of your initial reaction to that?
I was super excited because St. Louis has a whole history of sexuality and wellness. Like, so for those of you who don't know, St. Louis is the beginning where Masters and Johnsons came from. They were original sex researchers. And so at the time, essentially, there were people who would say, oh, you can't research sex. It's just something that happens naturally. We don't want to go there. It's always been a taboo topic. And Masters and Johnson were like, no, we're going to study it. And as a result of all of that research, they basically broadened, like they created my field, sex therapy, but they also created the ability for us to talk and start researching the field. And so that's like the start of where things became like bigger and bigger. But then also St. Louis, I think as a result of that history, has like a whole host of sex positive and body positive events and spaces where people can come to like explore, the kinky side of life.
Yeah, and there's so many terms out there people may be familiar with or unfamiliar with. I think of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory and even the lifestyle community. Talk to us a little bit about what you see in St. Louis. Is it all here, essentially?
Yeah. St. Louis has a huge underground population of people in the ethical non-monogamy community, in polyamorous, swingers. I was thinking of like who all is represented, and I want to tell you there are Republicans and Democrats and independents. Every religion is represented, every age demographic, adult above.
Yes, of course.
It is for adults, but every age, every ethnicity, even every, like, whether you're lower socioeconomic status, mid, or rich. Like, I know, I guess that wasn't the right term, but whatever. You're richies. That's from the Pretty in Pink. I don't know if you remember. But, like, everybody is represented. And it got bigger after 2020. So it used to be 5% of the population in general were exploring the open and ethical non-monogamy lifestyle. And let me tell you, when people got stuck in their homes, they got freaky.
I mean, we can certainly dig into that. Looking at this picture right here, they're on actual swings.
They are on swings.
Do people just generally think of swingers as one sort of umbrella group?
Yes, but they're wrong. So it's not. Like there are many groups, and I do want to point out. Okay, so if you've watched the trailer for
Yes,
yeah. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, this isn't swinging. This is cheating, because I just want everybody to know, like, they didn't talk to their partners. The difference between people who are in open relationships where they're trying to be ethical is they actually talk to their partner and they do it as a team, even if they date separately. Like, because they don't always like date together, but they do try to do it as a team. This show is cheating. It's not like the open or ethical non-monogamy lifestyle, because you show him like being married and like the guys are talking by themselves. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is more like Ashley Madison or like just people going on Tinder. So I do want people to hear that difference, because that was my clutch my pearls moment. I was like, this isn't swinging. That's not.
Right. There's not openness here. There's not conversation. And worst case scenario, it ends in a murder. Somebody ends up dead.
Okay, I want to tell you about why people in that lifestyle struggle with shows like this.
Yeah.
Is that a lot of times it's portraying it in a non-ethical way, where people are lying, they're doing things under the table. And when people are really trying to do ethical non-monogamy, they're trying to be consensual, they're having conversations with their partner, they're even vetting potential partners with each other. That doesn't mean they have to date together, but they might have a conversation where they get to know the potential partner. They may have conversations about, hey, who's this person you're dating? Where are you going? Just like safety conversations. It's not always even a controlling thing, because people are like, whoa, you want to know where you're going? Well, yeah, because what if you go off and date somebody and like, I don't know where you are. I just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
You know? So like when people are doing it in more of this non-monogamy lifestyle, they're having lots of conversations about safety, boundaries, consent, and like respect.
So do you think a show like this can be helpful to opening up conversations, or can it sometimes be harmful because it shows these folks in a certain type of way?
I think it can be both, depending on the couple, right? So the harmful piece is in the trailer, it shows them going behind their wives' backs and going on apps. So that piece is definitely harmful. Please don't lie to your partner, don't cheat. But for those people who are like, I don't know what else is going to go on the show, but it looks like they are going to try and show things like the kink community and maybe going to sex parties or things like that. So where it could be positive is if it gets couples talking about, would you ever do something like that? Would you be interested? But I want to tell you something. 73% of couples are not talking about sex at all, to each other. They've been married for years, and they don't say a word about what they like, what they want. And that's why they end up in that 40-year-old malaise that they talk about in the trailer.
Why in 2026 is that the case? Why are we still in that space where it's so hard to talk about sometimes?
I mean, we've treated it. So this is part of actually what I'm doing in my business, is that we put it in a corner like it's this evil, terrible thing. We have a really bad relationship with sex in our culture. And what I'm trying to do, actually with my book, is it okay to do a shameless promo?
Sure thing.
So I won't cuss, but there is cussing in it. So my book, From F No to F Yes Sex, is actually teaching people to neutralize sex. And the reason is because I don't even care if you're negative or positive. I just want you to have a natural, neutral relationship with sex, so you can talk about it, make decisions for yourself, decide what you want, but like really, because most people have it in shame and like these negative value systems around it, then they can't. Well, think about it. When you feel shameful, you actually hide. Like that's the natural body response when we're sitting in shame, is to like cover up and make small. So if we're associating this natural process, sex, which everybody does, by the way, you're here because somebody had sex, just FYI. Just, awareness is key. But
thanks for establishing that baseline.
I just want everybody
Remember
to know,
a little
it's happening
birds
all
and bees.
the time. Your neighbors do it. But the point is that when we associate shame with natural everyday processes, we cause severe harm. And that's what's happening. That's why 73% of people aren't talking about it.
And then obviously the show kind of touches on midlife too. Yeah. Something kind of happens. Maybe there's a shift for people where they start thinking about their desires or what they need or want, or even as they come closer to maybe end of life or thinking about that. What happens where people kind of go into this, I'm gonna make something change in my life?
All right, two things. The first thing is at 40, most people are about halfway to dead. Just let's be fair. Like most of you are going to die around 80, some sooner. And so something about 40 makes people do a back take and a front take. The back take on life is, I guess I should keep looking this way, but like when you look back, you're like, what have I done? What's my life been up to this point? Is this who I want to be? Am I proud of the choices I make, or have I been, and this is what everybody's doing, by the way, they're focused on work and kids and nothing else. So essentially, they've been kind of dissociating in life and just going through the motions. And then 40 is like a punch in the face. It's like, look, you're half dead. What are you going to do about it? That's the first reason. The second reason, it's all death related. I know this is so crazy, but like sex and death have deep connection.
Life and death.
Deep. Actually, they call orgasms the little death, in case you didn't know. But the second thing, and actually I write about this in my infidelity book, helping couples overcome infidelity. I'm really good at the promoting. Anyhow, so for the infidelity book, what ends up happening when people cheat is about a year before they face death somehow. And it's usually a very close connection to death, right? So it's either a parent, it could be a child, it could be just a close friend. But about a year before people cheat, usually somebody in their life has passed. And as a result, they start like really looking at like death brings new life into people. And they realize, I only have so much life to live. I have to figure out what I'm going to do with life. And so, and this is why in the pandemic, so hold on, I'm going to full circle to the pandemic. Okay. Why did everybody get freaky in 2020? We collectively as a society faced
Wondered
death.
That question, yes.
We faced death, and death does breathe new life. We have, I call them like these deaths and rebirths in our lives. And so when people were stuck in their homes and scared to death and wondering literally, will I die? They got to thinking, like, what is a quality life for me?
Yeah.
So every time we face death, it makes you rethink life, rebirth, and come up with a new plan for yourself. And that's what's happening at 40.
It honestly makes sense. And it also kind of, I think halfway through life, you think, is this all there is? Is this all I'm going to do? Is this really everything that I'm going to have? Because when you're younger, I think you sometimes think, I have it all in front of me and I have so many choices and I can choose this way or that way. Middle life, you're kind of like, whoa, did I end up here? Is that part of the question of like, is this all there is?
Yeah. And there's some interesting things about 2020. Side notes that I want to share. So everybody figured out they hate themselves, they hate their partners, they hate their job, or they hate where they live. And if you look at that in the statistics, hate themselves, more plastic surgery, way more therapy. Hate their spouse, way more divorces, or more people opened up. Oh, another hate yourself thing. A lot of people came out. There were more rates of people coming out as like gay or on the spectrum somehow because they're like, I'm going to live my whole life. So they found things that they didn't like that they wanted to change. And being in the closet could have been one of those things, right? So hate self, hate partner, hate jobs. Multiple people changed their jobs. And think of what happened in the real estate community at that time. Multiple moves, constantly.
Yeah.
People they're stuck in their home and they're literally seeing the things they can't stand. So it was this interesting moment that stopped time and made us all reevaluate what is a quality life. And that's why there's more swingers now.
Well, that is quite the interesting full circle moment of that. I mean, it does make sense. And maybe it's also part of the reason we see more shows and more media that's like, I mean, obviously it's been pervasive throughout everything. I mean, you can find it all the way back, but talking about it. But it just does seem like there's even more shows that kind of dig into that sometimes now. But so if I'm watching the show, let's say there's people out there who are like, I kind of relate to some of these characters and how they're feeling. What would you kind of counsel people to do, especially, again, as you get back to this idea of, like, don't cheat, don't make it secretive. What else can you do?
Oh, please see me as a therapist or someone like me. You can prevent. So I talk about that in that one sheet that I gave you. Essentially, like, all right, you don't have to blow up your marriage. You don't have to blow up your life, but you do have to reevaluate what's important to you. And so find somebody you can reach out to and connect to. I mean, a therapist or a sex therapist is a good person for that. It can be a coach or like somebody in your religious community. Because again, I respect all the values. Whoever you are, wherever you land, I respect you. But like, I think it's an important opportunity to really look at who you are and what you want. And like, then again, reevaluate what's the next step. But I will say sometimes what's hard is people blow up their lives first and then I help them, which is still part of my job. That's why I have the infidelity stuff. But I will say one thing I do is I actually intentionally market to the best friends who friend zoned each other.
Okay.
Because if I can catch you before you blow your life up, there's actually a lot of really good preventative work we can do. But I don't know. Americans are just like this. We have to break everything and like really destroy it before we're going to get help. And that's just, I don't know, it's the way of the world sometimes.
Because do people just accept things as like, well, it's just the season of life we're in. You know, we are just in this season of life, or maybe that's not as big a part as it used to be, or I don't need it as much. I mean, obviously there's bodily changes to hormones and all the rest that's happening for people. But again, it's like this idea of like, just if there's a way to kind of before you blow up your life, there's still some things you can do before that.
So I have a story about this. What typically happens is actually the problems start way before 40. It starts about baby time. So, all right, in the beginning of a marriage, there's about a 2-ish year period of a honeymoon period where people are having pretty good sex life. The reason it's good, though, is because there's a lot of I love you chemicals flowing, like oxytocin and dopamine, right? And so they make you a little impulsive. So sometimes people are actually doing more sexual things than they would on a typical basis during that time because of all those chemicals just surging through your body. Like, I love you, I'm just going to touch you, you know?
Yeah,
Stuff like that, right? So that's the honeymoon period. After that honeymoon period, this 73% of couples who aren't talking to each other start to go on a slope down. And it's a natural slope if you, like if you're in any relationship, but the difference between the couples that are successful versus unsuccessful in their sex lives is they know that slope's coming and they're very intentional about talking to each other, freshening things up, trying new things, and they make their sex life evolve across time. But let's go on the story through entire life, right? So first thing happens is it starts to slope down. Then they are like, well, let's have a baby, because at some point everybody's going to have a baby. I mean, you know, for those people who are like, I didn't have one. Okay, I see you, but most people have a baby.
Sure.
Right? So the baby thing makes people have sex just a little bit more, because of course you're trying, but it's work sex because most people are like, we're ovulating, let's do this. So they do it, but it's already starting to mess up their sex life. Then they have the baby, if they do, you know. So I'm picking like the most typical story, but I want everybody hearing to understand. I see you if you're not a person who fits with this story. So they have a baby, and then that's when desire tanks for multiple reasons. Hormones, they're tired, like totally normal. But again, still 73% of people, you're not talking to each other, and you wonder why your sex life sucks. It's because then at those times, instead of coming together, so the couples who are successful come together, make a plan, evolve with it, with each other, talk about partnership. The couples that continue to decline, it tanks at that point. And that's the first time I see people is about 1 year after the baby, or second baby if they like really trudge through the next one.
Yeah.
And then if they don't come see a helper at that point, what happens is they just say, it's a season. We all go through. You remember, you told me the justification, so I already know it. You're like, it's season, it'll pass. It doesn't pass. It continues to decline until what happens is the children become more independent, actually. And this is around that time where they may be in that 40-year-old malaise. They may be earlier than that in their 30s, though, depending on, you know, when they did the baby thing. But so then the children are more independent and they actually have more time. And then suddenly they're like, oh, we're still not having sex. We're still not doing this.
We're not talking.
And so that's the next time clients will see me. And then if by 40, if they haven't figured it out, somebody cheats. I wish that weren't the case, but it's pretty common that it does. And for the couples who I get to catch before that, then they like come up with a cool new path for improving that and changing it. But for the other ones, then when cheating occurs, then there's this approach of like, can we stay together? Are we divorcing? And, you know, it's like break it and then figure it out from there.
Well, and that leads me to think, too, about divorce. I mean, a lot of people obviously get divorced still. I think it's still 50% of marriages or so. Are these issues then magically solved with the next partner if you have a hard time speaking about sex and discussing what your needs and desires are with your previous partner? Does it always get better when you find someone else?
No. I mean, it depends, right? So there are some people who spent enough time in a sexless marriage that they are unwilling to ever do that again. And so those clients do find me and we talk about, all right, how are you going to communicate and get better at this? There are some people who find it themselves, like watching shows, educating themselves. But when people have lived in a sexless marriage for a long time, a lot of times they make a promise to themselves that they're never going to do that again. But if you don't learn to talk to your partner, then yes, they will fail in the next marriage. It just will go through another 2-year period. They'll have some declines, then they'll start fighting, resentment builds, and then you're on the same slope.
But it sounds like there is hope.
Because
there's conversation, there's dialogue. There
no,
are
that
people.
sounded really terrible.
Well,
didn't it?
no,
You're like,
I mean,
oh
I
man,
think,
everybody's going to divorce Angela.
I mean, again, I sometimes think that maybe shows like this, maybe conversations like this can open a door, open bedroom doors, to kind of think, how can we just talk about stuff differently? Start talking about it at all.
Yeah, I definitely, I want to go to the first couple, right? Many couples who've been in that marriage decide they want to educate themselves and figure out new things. So yeah, there are absolutely couples who are way happier in their second marriages than their first marriages. And to give credit to your first marriages that make it the whole time. Some of them hit this 40-year-old malaise and they do like the right thing with each other, which is we've got to figure out a way to connect and grow as a couple. And so on the list, I showed you like different things. They might have a baby in theory.
Sure.
Like as a couple, maybe they like pick up hiking as a cool new skill or hobby that they're going to do that brings them together. Or maybe they decide they're going to travel the world and like, you know these like YouTube people who are on trailers or something like that becomes their new like debut life choice.
Yeah.
Right? Other people do, so I will throw in the lifestyle. That is one way that couples spice up their lives and try something new and exciting. And there are successful couples in the lifestyle, but they are talking very direct about it. And they do have to emotionally grow. Like they have to develop their emotional intelligence to do it well.
And obviously there's a lot more to do to learn about that, to talk about it. What would you say if someone's like, okay, I need to take the next step? What do they do?
So, I mean, I would first have lots of talks with each other. I actually have different suggestions I give people depending on where they're at. There's different books people can read, like The Ethical Slut, Opening Up. One of my favorites is The Jealousy Workbook by Labriola. It has very specific skills for how to work through. I actually give it to like monogamous couples too, by the way, that one, because many of my skills I use both on monogamous and non-monogamous couples, because in the non-monogamy community, there's valuable skills for talking, going into those deeper emotions that like monogamous couples never talk about, and setting boundaries that really respect your relationship. People in the non-monogamy lifestyle actually have to like dig in and say, oh, what are my boundaries? What is okay or not okay? Monogamous, not at all. They don't have those conversations at all. And some of them are hurting each other unintentionally because of it. We call that micro-cheating.
Interesting. Oh
I
my
know.
gosh. All very interesting topics. I'm so glad to get to talk to you about this. Thank you so much. If people want to find you, how can they do that?
All right. So you can find me at openbedroomdoors.com, and all of my products and services are there.
Awesome. Well, Angela, thank you so much for joining us today. Really great conversation.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, I think that was a really interesting conversation.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think too, going back to the show about our characters, if 73% of couples are not talking about what they need in a marriage, what if these couples would actually just talk to each other? It seems like they can't.
I mean, that's with any movie or show. You like if these characters just had therapy, if they just had a therapist,
yes,
the film or show would be over in minutes. But yeah, I think going back to just Carol and just like kind of being closed off just as an individual, you can only imagine what kind of lack of conversations being had between her and Floyd. Like again, I just think about that car scene. Like clearly she's upset that she has to take the bus to work, and it's just kind of it's so inconvenient. But yet she hasn't expressed that. So there is something that just seems to be a defect or a personality trait that Carol displays where she doesn't want to express her feelings. And, same with Floyd. If he would have expressed, how he feels and the umpire outfit isn't his thing, they might be in a different position. Yeah.
So it looks like at the end of this episode that Clark's in big trouble. It looks like he's going to get, the prosecutor's like, yep, sign me up for the case and take him away. What do you think? I mean, you think it's going to end there? Highly doubt it.
I think he is lucky that someone like Officer Plum is on the case, because if everything were to go through with Homer, he would be, in jail and getting the death penalty. So luckily for him, I think Plum, as we see in this episode, she uncovers that Floyd was the one in the magazine, which opens up a whole other can of worms. But I do think now that Plum is diving deeper than Homer, there's going to be more things that are exposing this situation that's going to have Floyd or Clark be in the clear. at least.
Anything you're looking forward to for next week?
I want more dance scenes for sure.
Yeah.
No, I really want to learn more. It seems like we might go episode by episode of learning more and more about each character. I'm so fascinated to learn more about the stepson because it seems like something's going on there. But I also want to learn more, like you just mentioned, Clark's wife. Like, what's her situation? How does she feel about all this? So I'm excited to dive deeper into these characters.
All right. Well, we're excited to have you along on this journey with us. Again, we really do want you to be a part of the conversation, so please reach out to us. How can they find you, Elliott?
I am on social media under Movie File, so talking about TV shows, movies, and casting, all that good stuff. So on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff.
And I am also on TikTok, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Either Lauren Trager Reports or Lauren Trager TV. You can also email us at dtfstl@firstalert4.com. But we're going to have plenty more conversation on this show. Going to be breaking down all the episodes and bringing on these really fun, interesting guests. So stay with us. We'll see you next week for DTF St. Louis, the unofficial after show.